14 Americans were killed as they came together to celebrate the holidays. They were taken from family and friends who loved them deeply. They were white and black, Latino and Asian, immigrants and American-born, moms and dads, daughters and sons. Each of them served their fellow citizens, and all of them were part of our American family. Tonight I want to talk with you about this tragedy, the broader threat of terrorism, and how we can keep our country safe. The FBI is still gathering the facts about what happened in San Bernardino, but here's what we know. The victims were brutally murdered and injured by one of their co-workers and his wife. So far, we have no evidence that the killers were directed by a terrorist organization overseas or that they were part of a broader conspiracy here at home. But it is clear that the two of them had gone down the dark path of radicalization, embracing a perverted interpretation of Islam that calls for war against America and the West. They had stockpiled assault weapons, ammunition, and pipe bombs. So this was an act of terrorism designed to kill innocent people.
Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams. And Daniel, good to see you this morning.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Well, there was a major speech last night in the Oval Office, and the President doesn't do this very often, speak right from the White House. It was an important speech. He was prodded into doing it because some people don't think he's doing enough and being aggressive enough. And he finally, even when the Democrats started prodding him, he decided he better give a speech to show that he is going to be very, very tough on terrorism. One thing he did say, though, that now that we have to take this on, he says it's going to last years. You know, and of course, Bush always said that too, in for a long haul. Of course, they call it war, no declaration, but they call it war on terrorism. So I think this is one of the reasons why Republicans want this to be, the California incident, a terrorist attack, because then it's war, and then under war conditions, they can do a little bit more. But I didn't hear a whole lot of new. I thought the tone was changed a little bit. But what did you get from this? Anything brand new, or did you hear some of the same old stuff?
Well, normally I have to say I probably wouldn't have watched it, but I was waiting to watch the Pittsburgh Steelers, and so I was kind of stuck, and that was on before the game started. But, there were four main themes that he pointed out, four main actions, and as you say, none of them were new. Hunt down terrorists anywhere in the world, more training and weapons to rebels in Syria, disrupting ISIS, cutting off their funding, which is interesting because we only started bombing the oil a couple of weeks ago, and a political resolution in Syria, i.e. regime change by any other name. The one thing I did find interesting, and I'm sure you have some thoughts on it, is him saying that Congress should pass an authorization for the use of force.
Yeah, it might be a little bit late, but he recognized in a way that it was a little late because he blamed it on Congress, because Congress wasn't meeting up to their responsibility. They weren't doing what he told them to do. But then as soon as he mentioned that he thought that they should give him, and make it cleaner looking, the authority to use military force, he immediately followed it up to make sure the people knew he wasn't just sitting on his hands waiting for the people to tell him whether we're at war or not. And then he advertised and brags about how many military hits he has. So I think there's a little bit of confusion there about when we go to war, and that's, to me, one of the arguments for why we're in such a mess. That if we'd have been more strict in our definitions, or just looked at the definition of the Constitution, they call it a war. We're at a war against Islam and a war against terrorism. But the Congress never declares war, and so this thing, keeps going back and forth. It's a play, but the president wants. I think he wants to dilute the, the blame. So if he just goes and does it on their own, then Congress can't be blamed for it. There was a lot of that going on. Remember when they were talking about going into Iraq? Congress didn't want to declare war because they didn't want to assume responsibility responsibility. But it's the same old story. But I think it's one of our major problems is they do not recognize the importance on how we go to war, because if you go to war carelessly, it's hard to get out of those wars. It's hard to win the war. It's hard to know who the enemy is, and it just goes on, and this is what's happening. In all these years, we talked about why the policy of Bush administration would escalate, and this steady escalation, steady tragedy, and of course I don't see much to be gained anything Obama suggested last night.
I wonder how a prosecutor would look at his admission. It's almost an implicit admission that he's been breaking the law, asking for permission after he's done an act.
Well, do you think there's going to be an impeachment resolution offered soon? Well, there's a couple Republicans that would do it, but they'd mainly want to do it because he's not defending the country, enough. But Obama follows the same old thing, don't worry, don't be fearful. But we will keep you safe. That's the number one responsibility of the U.S. government, is to make us safe. Not realizing that maybe protecting our liberties would be important. But what has happened? This is an argument I've made for years, that anytime there's war, we're involved in a war, there's a much generous attack on our civil liberties, and this has been true all the way back, Civil War times onwards. The civil liberties are always attacked. So now we have this endless war. Republicans and Democrats don't see an end to it. So there's an endless attack, on our civil liberties. And I think, the one big political issue that came up here today and represents an attack on liberties is the whole gun issue. That was the biggest thrust, but that was nothing new. If we could just stop gun sales, everything would be okay.
It is very interesting because the president was slightly deceitful, I think, in the way he presented this. And here's the quote that he used. What could be the argument for allowing a terrorist suspect to buy a semi-automatic weapon? In that he's arguing for people that are on the no-fly list to be excluded from their Second Amendment rights.
Right, and at least he used suspect, but just think how often they've used the word terrorist. Shoot the terrorist. He's an Islamist. Kill him. It's not even a suspect. But here he talks about a suspect. But how many people are on that list? I don't think it's like a dozen or two mistakes. There's thousands of mistakes, and even people that a significant number of people who work for the Department of Homeland Security is on a no-fly list, and that's the irony and the stupidity of the whole thing.
Well, Adam Dick has an article up on the Institute website where he talks about in 2007, I think, they had admitted that there were 10,000 names put on the list that don't belong there. And these are just bureaucrats that are putting names on lists. There's clerical errors there. I was looking up just recently, it's a funny look, so many prominent people. Senator Ted Stevens' wife was on the list because her name sounded like Cat Stevens, the singer, who I guess is a bad guy. Representative Don Young, who has got a hot temper, but I don't think he's a terrorist, was on the list because his name sounded like someone else. So all these people that are wrongly put on the list and have a very, very difficult time getting off this list now can no longer exercise their Second Amendment rights.
How often did we pay people for information about the bad guys in Iraq? We probably continue to do it. You tell us who the bad guys are and we'll hit them with a drone. Yeah. Well, all they have to do is pick one of their political enemies, somebody they don't like. He's a bad guy, so we go in there and do the killing. So people purposely make use of this, and they could, somebody politically could put you on the list if they wanted to, and that, of course, is a tragedy. But I think the biggest political issue of this speech is, of course, there's no consensus to change our foreign policy, which is our argument. But there's certainly a consensus, Republicans and Democrats, is the gun issue, and this is it. The challenge for the Democrats is will they use the gun issue and tighten up on the purchase of guns? Now, every time an incident like this happens, gun sales go up. So maybe the NRA is pushing like this, because we sell more guns. The gun manufacturers. So they will, try to regulate the guns, and that's a big political issue, and it's been a mistake for the Democrats, and they have backed off. Maybe they will feel emboldened now to say this will do the trick. People like the statement you made about Obama saying, how could anybody be opposed to selling a gun to somebody on a no-fly list? So maybe they're going to feel emboldened, but I don't think that's going to become a popular political position. I think there's still a strong sentiment. Even more Democrats are joining in that.
At the same, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say at the same time, it'll be curious to see how many Republicans will be peeled off when the issue becomes terrorism. So, we can't sell guns to terrorists. So you may actually get some Republicans who are pro-gun rights backing off because they frame it in this way.
Well, and another place where the Republicans are already wrong is they want to protect the individual right to own guns, and they're pretty consistent, but who knows what they would do. But the Republicans want more guns given to the government to fight wars that we've already indicated, wars that are undeclared. They don't have authority to do this. So they want more guns to shoot suspects around the world. They have a problem with the gun issue too, but the Democrats are basically supportive of it. Maybe Obama would kill a few less, but it is still a gun issue. And basically, there's very, very little challenge about the illicit use of guns in the military, which basically, if we have this deeply flawed foreign policy, it's the use of violence eventually that precipitates the violence against us. And but not too many people are talking about blowback these days or unintended consequences, but it does exist, especially when a lot of people kill. It's always radical Islam. Obama will never use the word radical Islam. I doubt if he used it last night, but he accommodated because he's starting to use the word terrorism more than he had, and this will make Republicans happy. We're winning. Now we have to say radical Islam to turn it into a clash of civilizations. So that it's the Western Christian culture against Eastern Islamism. So this is this speech is not going to help a whole lot of anything because the policies are going to stay the same. We're supposed to be fearful. And if we're all fearful, we'll be okay. So I think that they forget that the purpose is not to scare people into giving up their liberties and support more war. It should be to try to understand why government should be limited for limited purposes, and that is to protect our liberties, defend ourselves if we're attacked, but not to be the policeman of the world. He once again talked about American exceptionalism, that always annoys me. But he and Obama keeps saying, well, freedom is much more powerful than fear. Well, he's stirring up the fear, and Republicans really stir up the fear, and freedom is better. Of course it is. But what do? They turn around, they want to take away our freedoms, our freedom of speech, our privacy, our right to own guns. They're always attacking our freedom. How many people in this country could argue that we as individual citizens in this country are more free since 9/11? I mean, I think everybody realizes it, but their answer would be, well, that's necessary. You have to give up your liberties in order to be safe because the purpose of government is to make us safe, and therefore I think this is going to continue. I do not see with the current crop of politicians in Washington, except for a few exceptions, our friends, but they don't have much of a voice, unfortunately. To me, I think we have to get a voice that puts pressure on the members of Congress.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. And like we said, the President's speech was listened to by a lot of people. We don't believe it's going to change a whole lot. It's still to continue the fear. It's still to confuse people about where you get the authority to use military force. And it's also to build up more confidence in government, but they will not address the real issue of foreign policy, how we go to war, and also the issue of guns. If you want to control guns, yes, control the military guns that have killed so many people, and they had not attacked us. that's just collateral damage, and we're supposed to forget about that. Anyway, it doesn't look like the conflict in Syria and Iraq is quieting down. I am just hoping and praying that more people in this country will respond by saying, let's really start thinking about a different foreign policy of intervention. Why should we be in the business of provoking people? Because there are people who want to be radicalized and they like the incentive. So why serve the interests of those individuals who would like to get more supporters by able to be able to use our policies? Say, see, that's what we told you. The Americans are coming here to kill us. So it's, to me, easy to accept the principle that we should mind our own business, have a strong national defense, defend our country, but defend our liberties here at home. The greatest threat to us right now is the undermining of our liberties, and the threat is domestic, much more so than any foreign entity coming in this country and attacking us. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Liberty Report, and please come back soon.